The Spore Spreader, the Queen of Toxin. This is Saryn, the Poison Warframe. Saryn focuses on immense amounts of damage over a wide area, with a focus on set and forget playstyles. Her damage starts low, but ramps up over time to become extremely powerful, going through resets. Saryn's passive causes status effects from Saryn and her weapons to last 25% longer. It can be useful on bosses or tanky enemies, but not amazing. One of the issues is bosses usually can only have upwards of 4 status effects on them, unless they're one of the earlier game bosses, like the Sergeant. And normal enemies die too quickly for having long status effects to really matter most of the time, though you can still find it very useful. Spores is Saryn's signature ability, and her main source of damage. Now, you may be saying, Dusky, you handsome, smart, cool, attractive, wise, and clever boy. But Spores is her first ability. How can her first ability be her greatest and strongest ability and source of damage? Well, you smooth talker, while I appreciate the flattery, it will get you no extra credit. Spores is a deadly ability. Saryn infects a target with a pox that deals corrosive damage every second. The total damage per tick can be seen above the ability menu on the bottom right. Spores have a high chance of inflicting corrosive status effects as well, lowering the defenses of things like Grineer. When an enemy infected by spores dies, enemies within range also become infected, spreading the disease. The longer Spores is active on any enemy, and the more enemies are infected, the more its damage ramps up. Recasting uses up some of the damage built up, but uses less energy. When all infected enemies die, and it does not transfer to any other enemy, Spore's damage will decay over time until it fully resets. Now you may still be thinking, Dusky, please marry me, you're so incredibly cool. But then afterwards you think, but how does this make her so powerful with one ability? Well, a person I need to get a restraining order against. It's because the damage increases for as long as any enemy is infected. It only begins to decay after all infected enemies are dead, and it is no longer on any enemy at all. Because of this, you can get to insane amounts of damage numbers. It's an incredible ability, kept relatively balanced from the fact it goes through resets and decays. However, if you use it right, you won't even have to deal with that very often. Molt allows Saryn to take after cicadas and shed her skin. This shed shell... Say that 5 times fast. Shed shell, shed shell, shed shell, shed shell... This shed shell distracts enemies, causing them to attack it. When the shed skin's health is depleted, it explodes, dealing toxic damage to enemies nearby with a guaranteed status effect. Upon casting Molt, Saryn will gain increased movement speed and be cleansed of all negative status effects. It's a very good way to get a chance to regen shields and heal up if you can. Toxic Lash allows Saryn to poison her weapons, giving them additional toxin damage with guaranteed toxin status effects. This can be pretty good, but the main benefit of Toxic Lash isn't this enhanced damage. It's that whenever an enemy infected by spores is hit, all spores on that enemy will burst and spread, making it even easier for Saryn to spread her spores on as many enemies as possible. As you can simply hit an enemy, pop all their spores, which will infect nearby enemies, which are going to get hit anyway, which then reinfect said enemy, and any enemies nearby them, and so on and so forth, making it really, really hard for spores to not have an effect at all times, unless there's just no enemies spawned at the moment. Releasing a deadly mist from her palms, Miasma deals viral damage to enemies over a large area, with a guaranteed viral status chance. It's a very good ability for making enemies more vulnerable to damage. Along with this, enemies infected by spores take 4 times the damage from Miasma, making spores even more useful to her kit. Overall, Saryn is an extremely good Warframe for players that like ramping damage and poisoners. She is definitely one of the strongest damage dealers in the game. I highly recommend her if you enjoy status-based damage dealers. I think she'll find a good home with a lot of people. At rank 30, Saryn has 465 HP, 370 shields, 240 armor, and 225 energy. She has a Vazarin Aura polarity, along with 1 Vazarin and 1 Neramon polarity slot. Saryn Prime has an additional 75 armor, 75 energy, and an additional Madurai polarity slot. Her main blueprint can be purchased for credits on the market, with her blueprint parts being retrieved from the Keled Dathame assassination mission on Sedna.
When modding Saryn, 2 stats that I actually recommend the most are duration and range. So stretch and continuity are really useful on her, because aside from Toxic Lash, just about all of her abilities actually are affected by range, and all of her abilities are affected by duration. In particular with spores, with higher duration, it actually makes the decay on spores slow down significantly. Vitality for health is really good because she's got pretty decent health. Redirection for shields because it's her next highest. However, if you want to swap it out for Steel Fiber for armor, you're perfectly fine to do so. I still recommend shields over armor. Intensify for ability strength, of course, because you almost always want ability strength. But if you want to swap something out, I would swap Redirection for another mod of your choice. You could always swap it for Equilibrium, but realistically, you don't need that much energy or energy efficiency, because you're not going to be casting most of her abilities super often, because you can just put down spores, kill the enemy, and infect nearby enemies. Use Molt every now and then, use Miasma every now and then, and with a little bit more duration, Toxic Lash lasts almost a minute, so I say this is a pretty good early build for her. Now let's see her in action one last time.
The enemy is a disease, Tenno. You are the cure.